How are you?
I'm great. Killed everyone.
Let's be honest, you're not great. You're really tired. You've been working 20-hour days for the last month. You've been absolutely tapped. The political landscapes have been upside down. That your to-do lists have been insane. We've had to reschedule this 58 times. How busy
Yeah.
has the political world got, actually?
It's been it's it's been absolutely insane.
Why
And
would that be? Why is it so busy? What would be keeping
this
everyone?
small little thing which has annihilated the economy and also put the health of all New Zealanders at risk. Just a small little thing.
Yeah, and I guess I'll start here. Everyone gives government shit for being slow. Everyone
Hmm.
gives corporate
Hmm.
shit for being slow. Everyone gives council shit for being slow. Everyone gives big
Yeah.
business shit for being slow. But it really feels that I've never seen so much speed ever from all of the above happen in the last in the entire history of humanity than we have the last 6 weeks. And I was talking to Vic Crone on week one of the lockdown, and she literally said, it has surprised me how fast we can actually move when we really want to. Has your mind been blown with the speed of how things are actually happening now, and what's the headspace been for the amount of crazy speed that actually has happened? What's the vibe?
I would put an asterisk next to Vic's word want, and I'd put need, because it's actually been a need to move quickly in this environment. It's not a want, because absolutely any government department, any minister, any council, if they want to move quicker or they want to do things faster, they can. And I know that to be true. I worked in one of those offices. If you want to make decisions and get them done, you can get them done. But we actually needed to move quickly. And there's a lot of speculation around whether or not we moved fast enough, or should we move too slow. I mean, it's all hypotheticals at this stage, because the only thing that we do know is what facts we have in front of us and what decisions have been made. So I would just say that it's definitely a case of where there's been the need to move expeditiously. What we're seeing now, though, as we're moving out of alert levels, is that urgency is starting to decrease.
Mm,
And the fear and the worry that I have with that is that you have large parts of sectors who have been unable to work at all through alert level 4, still unable to work at alert level 3, and for them it is still absolutely like we've just entered lockdown, because they
mm.
cannot make any money,
Still,
they have no livelihood, and they have no way of picking themselves up and thinking like, in 6 months time I'm going to be okay. And so I do want to see that incessant need to make things happen for these sectors who are not necessarily as vocal or loud, because it's still just like we're day one of lockdown for them, because their livelihoods are decimated.
yep. If you look at there's big celebrations that people can go through McDonald's drive-throughs, but if you're in different
Mm-hmm.
industries, you're still at four. It doesn't mean shit. You're still stuffed. And
Absolutely.
is your fear that government won't listen as much if more and more people are getting happier, that
Yeah.
they won't have the same sense of urgency for certain sectors, and that some actually might get just kind of pushed to the side a little bit? Is that what you're kind of feeling might be a risk?
Or left behind. And the
Mm.
reality is that they, you know, my perfect example, and I know 50% of the population, well, about 50% will be feeling this. And it's not high on the priority list, like, let me just be honest, but it is a perfect example. You can't get into beauty outlets. Like, for example, I had to fill out my eyebrows
Oh
so
my god,
much,
that is some
Robert.
first world shit. Piss
And
off, Holly.
no, so hear me out. There
Oh,
is an owner. No, no, no. Here, like that's what I said. It's not high on the list of priorities. But just hear me out. There's an owner behind that business. There's beauty therapists behind that
okay.
business. There's livelihoods and
Yes.
families
No.
that are
Okay.
behind those businesses.
Yes.
But remember,
Massage.
every
Yep.
time you go to one of those places, there's rent cost, power costs, rates, like all of those kind of things that exist within that business to make that business keep working. So they're still got all those costs happening week after week after week. And my question is, while we do get happier, what's going to happen with these groups? Because they're not particularly vocal. You haven't seen a lot from them, generally because they run on small margins, and they're not the ones that are being lauded as essential. Because as you just said, your reaction was that, oh yeah, come on, Holly. But
Well,
my
I just don't
argument
have
is
hair,
like,
so I can't relate. I just don't. No,
I
but
think
no,
you
no.
have eyebrows, bro. Do you
But I would say no. You have a point there. Janine Crossan from Powered by Flossie
Yeah.
was talking about
Yeah.
this new. The danger not only is then when it's closed, it's that when it reopens, there's going to be a new kind of like a new culture of fear
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
safety, touch,
Yeah.
massage. I think
Yeah.
there's even more so. So it actually makes it even worse for those, because even if it was back
Yeah.
at square one, then people are like, well, I don't want someone touching me on my face,
Yeah.
doing my
Yeah.
shit or whatever the thing is. So that's
Yeah.
you're right, and I don't know if you've been watching the America. You probably don't see the same Instagram feeds I do, but in America, all of the like the hip hop rappers and stuff, they've been in this kind of no hair sort of challenge, and everyone's showing them like without their haircuts, and like Khaled's looking like a flippin' washed up hobo, and Puff Daddy's looking disgusting, and it's just kind of, it's like a funny thing, but simultaneously that like people want to feel good about themselves, and when they can't get all these different things, it helps with psyche of it as well. So no, I definitely get it.
But it's more about, for me, that argument of life versus livelihoods. So, you have to have a livelihood in order to be able to have a life. And the reason why I use that terminology is the government started using it now, because we're out of alert level 4 and went to alert level 3. But there's still people who can't operate. They still cannot make money. They still cannot pay their staff. They don't have any support. And I imagine it's quite dire. So while we're seeing from media reporting and other sources that we get our news from, that it's like, yay, we're sort of getting back towards some normality, and hopefully we'll be in level 2 in less than 2 weeks now. For other people, that's so far from their mind, because they still have no ability to generate any income to provide themselves security. And I do just think about it, and I do worry about it.
What industries are you most worried about that are going to be hit in the next 3 months after this?
Well, it sort of depends upon what happens with public sentiment, and I don't know if anyone can foretell what will happen, because you touched on a really good point there about people being worried about being touched or close contact, all of those types of things. That cross-cuts so many parts of retail and that, like hospitality, for example, because you have to be close to serve, to prepare all of that stuff. So I would say it's probably the industries that you could consider to be discretionary. Those are the ones that I'm probably most concerned about, because if you think about, if anyone is going to tighten up their belt, they're going to look at the things that they have as a want, not a need. So you're not going to cut your grocery spend, but you're probably going to cut your eyebrow spend.
Or buying them new Louis Vuittons, them new Louis. Yep.
No,
you're right.
That's not a reality in my world.
No, but no, I get it.
Yeah.
Well, also as well that the routine change in habits from many that have been in at home. I don't know if they're going to go out to as many dinners publicly. They're going to spend as much as takeaways and going out to eat and just kind of big expenses, or as many big night outs, going to a bunch of different bars. I don't know if the human behavior side's probably changed a little bit, right? We're talking about yesterday. I was talking to some crew that works at a brewery, saying I think user habits when this finishes, I don't think people are going to go bar hop to 10 different bars in a night like they would go hit the town. I think they'll be with a couple of friends, go to a spot, and it'll be a bit more logistically not planned, maybe.
Yeah,
I think our user behavior will clearly change.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, Kiwis have done what they needed to do because they've been told to do what they need to do. If they'd stayed in lockdown longer, I think that you'd start to see the behaviour change, because there's only so far that you can put up invisible walls around people where they give you they let you take away their freedom for no wrongdoing on their own part before they're kind of like, okay, I want my life back and I want to
Well,
be
that's
able
what's
to do
happening
all the things.
in the States, right? It's exactly what's happening. People are like, stuff this. I'm just going to do my shit, and
Yeah.
people are starting to create. They've pushed out, in California, the thing in the lockdown until the end of May now.
Yeah.
And California went into lockdown on March 15th. So anytime March 15th to end of May, and people are now
Yeah.
like, stuff it. I'm just going to go do this shit,
Yeah.
whatever. New
Yeah,
Zealand went down
absolutely.
on the 25th, and then they're coming out
Yeah.
of lockdown. I think so. It's like five weeks, right? So
Yeah.
you know, I think you're right. There's only so much that people will take, and then they're like, stuff this. When you saw it? Obviously, if you're just there's a balancing act of, life versus livelihood. You probably said before perfectly, was if you go too soon, everyone gives you shit because they feel like they're being trapped for no reason. You go too late, it's potentially Italy. You look like an asshole because you've stuffed up. What are the chats actually like in the background? Like, if you're Jacinda, what are the key things that are talking to her that are making her make that call of when to pull the trigger to do what she did? What
Well, the
powers
thing that
exist?
I found, well, see, I would say that I would want it to be based on official advice and things that are coming from all um, the policy experts and leaders. But I saw some media reporting which said that the Prime Minister made her decision based on what she'd seen from friends overseas. Now, I don't know about you, but that did sort of give me cause for concern, because we really should be looking at what the advice is that's coming to help our decision makers make these decisions. So when I saw that media article, I was a little bit concerned, because I thought, well, but we can all see overseas, and if we're going off that, then perhaps we should have just gone a little bit earlier. But in a practical world, you have 20 ministers in cabinet for a reason. They're supposed to be across their portfolios. They are the ones that are elected. They put themselves up to be scrutinised by the public. They're not hiding behind the term official. And those are the ones that are sitting there at the table together, should be looking at all of their official advice and then making those decisions. And also, the benefit that politicians, have, is that they can take into consideration things that officials can't or won't. So, for example, that freedom argument, we have to walk a fine line. We're seeing it come out in the media now, talking about health. At all costs, they wanted to turn their backs on Kiwis and say, you can't come home. Like you, if you had decided that you wanted to come back from America and come back to New Zealand, well, health officials said we should just lock them all out, say goodbye, no. And, what we saw in the foreign minister's speech yesterday was that he said to officials, you can't turn your back on your own. So whether that's a little bit of politicking, hey, it might be. But it showcases the absolute ability for politicians to think about things outside of what officials can think of. And that is the purpose of having politicians. Now, we're only seeing one or two, the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. We're really only seeing from those two. And so, the question has to become, for all these other decisions that are being made, what are those people who have been elected to do those roles doing, and what's happening? And to answer that, I can't, because I don't know. I don't know what discussions are being had, and I don't know what is in behind there.
But there's always what the public know. There's what those in the loop know, and there's always those that actually know certain things, right? There's these kind of layers to it.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone the other day, bits and pieces, and they're like, "Oh no, well, from this source, vaccine will be 20% chance by here, 90% chance by here." I'm like, "That's a thing?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." It's like, "Well, why isn't that known publicly?" They're like, "Oh no, it's not. It's not public." I'm like, "Oh well, they've got." And I was sitting there, I'm like, "Whoa, wait a second. There's always these different
Yeah.
there's layers, levels
Yeah.
to this shit. There's always levels to this shit." When you've seen this play out for New Zealand anyway, it kind of feels like politically, apart from one or two little stuff ups from Muppets, that people have played quite fair, right? Like there hasn't been crazy attack fest gnarly. There hasn't been throwing stones every single day like it usually is, like kids in the playground just being muppets. It actually feels like politics has worked for good from both sides of the aisle for the most part. Is that a fair assessment, or has there been just
I think you're seeing politicians being restrained because their views are, we've got a task at hand which is bigger than any of us have ever seen, and we need to make sure that we're constructively working toward the best outcomes for New Zealand. I think that when the dust is settled and we get back to some sort of sense of normality, and trust me, we will. Like, this is not going to stay like this for a long time, because you cannot decimate the things that create the ability for us to have a health response. That is, you cannot decimate the private sector and or the economy to then, because then you can't pay for the health response if we needed that, because that's publicly funded. You need that money coming in order for it to be able to come out at the other end. So we will go to a sense of normality. It might be new, it might look different, but everyone will get their lives back. That is when you will see the critique will start happening, and it will happen fast. And we have got an election, whether or not it's in September or November. I hazard to say that if it was moved to November, you'll see greater extent of the economic fallout if it is at that date, because I've been reading commentary around waves of unemployment, and that just makes perfect common sense based on how the wage subsidies served its purpose. It's only there until the end of June. So if businesses are not able to generate levels of revenue that they were prior to this, they're going to have to start culling staff. And that's the brutal world of business. That's the decisions that you make as a business owner. So we will probably see waves of redundancies. We will see unemployment go higher, absolutely without a doubt, than where it is right now. And then that's when you will start to see politics play a more political part.
Got it. And I'm sure they've probably been restrained back a little too, because if they start attacking now, they're going to look like assholes. Right?
Absolutely.
So they're very aware of that. So they'll line up all their little war chests of, oh, she did this and he did that and all this other shit. And then after it's settled, then they're going to come throw the stones later.
Yeah. And I mean, you saw it yourself. I mean, did you see those comments from Deborah Russell? So she's a member of parliament?
Yeah. So, yes. It was so I saw two kook things. I think you both know. One, old mate Simon with his little Facebook thing having a crack, and then Deborah. And I was like, from both sides, that's why they kind of cancel each other out of my head. Plus the old mate guy that kept like shifting houses and going to the beach and all this other shit. I'm like, what's this guy up to? Like the fuck, like what? But you know, the funniest story about that is someone was snitching on him, carrying a little like cardboard box walking down the street. I'm like, so wait a second, how do they know that? It's like, you got these flipping snitches. I was like, man, I just thought that was hilarious. But also, the dude's a flipping muppet. You've already been told off. Yeah. Stay in your shelter. Shut your face. Just
don't you worry about that though? Because that is our health minister.
It's just, I mean, the thing that was ironic. It's like, I get it. I get it. No, but he did. I read the thing. Like, I don't follow politics, you know that, but I have been getting a little bit more into it. But he was saying, "Oh, it's a bit more quieter at the other house, so I might just go and do that." But the funniest bit is, I can guarantee, if he's saying it's if he was doing all these changes, he would have been like had like 2 boxes or some shit at night time. Some like national supporter is sitting there getting their Sally out, sends it through, got the new Samsung 28 for the X opticals, and be like, yo, that's the guy. He's stuffing up again.
Yeah, I know.
How does one dude stuff up 3 times? Like, that's so kooky. I mean, I get it, right? Like, I guess technically is one thing, he's social distancing to get from A to B. I get that. But optically, I'm sure he just got his ass handed to him.
The really interesting thing, so what you said about Deborah and Simon, them cancelling each other out. So
is that fair or wrong?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just wanted to look at the details a little bit more, because the thing that I have found is that there's almost a sense, and I've always worried about this, of mob mentality, especially when it comes to politics, that people can't be comfortable in expressing an opinion and then sitting in that, whether or not that's a dissenting opinion. And hey, like, props to, for example, David Seymour. He does it more often than pretty much anyone in that parliament, and he is an MP of one, and so he has to sit in that comfort of being, or that uncomfort, sorry, of being the outlier. But my point being is that the thing, as all this stuff started to happen, is again brought to my attention how little Kiwis actually know about the democratic system within which that they rely on to form the rules in which we have. So, Deborah Russell, I saw some commentary online talking about her being a minister. She is not a minister. She's a backbench MP. She doesn't have say on policy. And then the response from the finance minister, the person who makes the policy and spends the money, he said he categorically refuted what she was saying.
Got it. But they're on the same team.
Yeah. But you have the dude who spends the taxpayers' money and makes the policy, leading the direction of the country, right? Saying, I don't agree with that at all. And that was really lost on a whole lot of people.
Oh, yeah, no, people don't. I didn't even hear that. All I heard was, this is the person from Labor saying that small businesses, it's their fault because they had pre-existing financial conditions coming into it, and maybe they should have better businesses. And I'm like, probably not the right thing to say to a nation where 97% of businesses are small businesses with staff under 20, and you're on Labor.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, for me, then if I get calls from people or clients, or they're like, what is this? And then my line, it's quite clear. They're not a minister. They're not a person that spends taxpayers' dollars. They're not making the policy. They've said no. It's a red herring. Just ignore it. Move on, because we've got many more things to focus on. Now, with Simon's commentary, because I'm not on Facebook, I didn't see any of that. I just heard the fact that it was like tens of thousands of comments or something. When I watched both the press releases, I like press stand-up, I watched the PM's and then I watched his. Now, as a small business owner, the thing that I didn't like around the announcement from the government was the reference to 2 business days. Now, business owners know when you are the one that's responsible for putting food on the table, that doesn't exist. You work when you need to work to absolutely make sure that all of your suppliers are paid, that there's a little bit that you can scrape off for some wages for yourself, that all of your employees are paid. And that means that this 2-day idea is irrelevant for most small businesses, that they're working 7 days a week, whatever that they need to work. And I didn't like that talking point, because that's all it is. It's a talking point.
It's a soundbite.
Yes,
I mean, but when I look at how it rolled out, most people literally said, "Oh, it's only 2 more days of work. Yeah, stuff it." And I was like,
yeah, but that's the whole point. You know, that's politicking again. Because for SMEs, this part of their sector who's been devastated by this, they're sitting there, and this is, I think, one of the things that Simon was trying to point out, was that these days all count. You know, and if you think about sectors that meant that from suddenly they couldn't trade at all in alert level 4 to they could, you could be talking about tens of $1,000s worth of their money that was so close that they could see that they could start generating some income, versus, it just got pushed out another week. And it was a week, 5 days, you know, it wasn't 2 days. And so I didn't like, you'll hit the nail on the head. It's a soundbite.
But that's what the masses get. And the next one after that was, then they said, from, you know, I guess my conversations, I guess, you know, pretty average Kiwi banter, goes, oh yeah, and the reality is it's probably stopping a whole bunch of Muppets going up to the Batch for the weekend. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Probably did.
But they've already been doing that anyway. The Muppets have been Muppeting. So, I mean, like...
But I have a small brain, and in my head, all I is like, 2 days, yep. Stop the Muppets going to the thing, yep. End to Anzac, yep. Stuff it. But you are right, because every day counts and the hours count, and you know what is 2 days to the masses is 7 days of revenue, and that could cost them 10G, 20G, right?
Yeah. And I'm not criticizing the decision itself because
It's
I
the
don't know
wording.
what went in behind the decision. The thing that really irked me was just that, because I could see right through it. And I was like, well, from my lens as a small business owner, I have the luxury that I can work from home, right? Because people just ran me or sending me emails, and then I'm looking at stuff and doing things. And because that's the way that my business operates, right? But for construction sites, tradies, hospo, beauty, all of these things, they can't work from home. So they're literally sitting there in their invisible prison because they're like, I can't make any money and I don't know how long this is going to go on for. So,
The uncertainties, that's such the it's that it's like Inception. It just plants seeds of doubt and it stuffs you up when you
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
It's way
yeah,
better when it's like, hey, it's locked down for
yeah,
this. Stuff you, sit there, shut your face,
yeah,
next. Instead of like, oh yeah, it's just gonna cruise. Because that when that happens, it's like
yeah,
that rumor spreading mentality of someone at the party or at school, and it starts and it circles, and the next thing you know, it's just built up to this big massive thing, just out of the
yeah,
sheer fact that there wasn't clarity in comms. But from clarity
yeah.
in comms and consistency, you probably must be pretty impressed with how, I guess it's kind of gone. Just brand Jacinda to the world is even bigger and better than ever. How proud or stoked have you been from a communication side with what's actually come out to the public and how it's been
Oh,
actually operating?
absolutely. It's just been phenomenal. And it definitely showcases uh, the power of that soft skill, because comms is considered a soft skill, remember? How much that is undervalued in modern day, sort of work environment. So if you think about board tables around the country, the things they look for are legal or finance or those kind of things. Talk to me about how many you see with comms as a priority skill. Not very many. And that's why when you have things that happen which need really swift, clear messaging and responses, the ones that do well have the ability to craft a message, push it out, and stick to that message, and be confident that that's where they're going. And that's exactly what the PM's done. And she did the exact same thing when we had the what do you call it, the Christchurch attacks. Very clear, consistent messaging, and that's what you need, because it gives you it gives you certainty, and it gives you an assurance that you can trust what's being said. Rather than one thing being said and then 2 days later a different thing being said. And so I think it's just been phenomenal. I think the wider thing now is that perhaps comm skills might be valued a little bit more than they have been in the past. And I've seen people been saying that for years, and it's sort of now catching up.
I'd agree. Leadership, I feel, has had to change, and empathy rules, and leading with love and being kind. That is definitely, kind is cool now for leadership, not being the authoritarian, if that's the right word, just that dictatorship stuff you. This is how it's gone. I don't think that's popping. Like if we've been led with love, that's been clear and concise, and then old mate boss Jimmy has just been a dick about stuff. I don't think people are taking that stuff right now. I think they're like, stuff that. Like, this isn't what I'm about. And I think it's really made question people where they're at, the organizations they work for, the type of leaders they have, that soft skill. And you talk about communications potentially not being at the board table. It's what's become very clear is also culture has not really been at the board table. And when you think about both of those things combined for New Zealand where it is right now, I think both are definitely needed. Different voices, different. They talk about diversity. Diversity of thought's one thing, but just where we're at now is it's new territory for so many businesses, and I would hope that that leadership that has led to this point just is aware that if they don't understand certain things, now's a great time to ask up.
I think that it is new territory for a lot of older established businesses. I don't think it's new territory for a lot of newer businesses. If you think about heaps of the homies that you and I both rock with, that's why we rock with them, because, this attitude, because I want to use that term, sort of attitude and workplace wellness rather than culture, because culture can be misconstrued as sort of like te ao Māori or anything, or, any other sort of like cultural ethnicity aspect, which is not what we're talking about. We rock with them because they have similar values and ways of working that we do. And if I look at all my suppliers, they're all like that. You could send like a text at 9 p.m. and just be like, dude, this thing's like popped off and I need some assistance. And they're going to be like, yeah, sweet, I'm on it in the morning. Don't worry, I'm all good. And it's that idea that you work with people who you are alike and have similar values, and then you can all like grow together. For older businesses, not all of them. Some of them have got fantastic ingrained leadership models, but traditionally, the way in which that, like you just touched on, it's authoritarian. There's a top, and then it sort of all goes down. Some of them will struggle to move from that, and it's not saying that just because you're the boss, then all of a sudden you need to kowtow to, your lower level workers or whatever that might be. But you do need to have respect that every individual within your working chain has value, and they do bring value.
Yeah. To really embrace all of it. It's yeah, if they don't, I always have to say this thing, if you don't fit in, you'll fit out. And I think now what's clearly happening is a whole bunch of people that rock with each other are going to do even more so, and the bonds of employees and relationships that have got tighter through this are going to
Yeah.
be there even more so.
Oh,
So in
yeah.
a great way, it's, I think, done a lot there. In your head, when you look at it, what do you think the biggest potential danger is as businesses potentially go into this sort of new world after COVID AC?
Um. Uh. I don't. I think. Well, one of the things that I do think about is that you go into business ultimately to make a better life for yourself. So Pākehī, which is business in Māori, that Pākehī has entirely changed my life and the way that I can shape it, right? So I'm an absolute preacher about if you can go into business and if you can get through the first hard first year where you're making no money to get into the second year. I think that you should do it, but I think that we can't lose sight of the fact that a business is there, not a charity. It's there to make money, provide outcomes for its clients in whatever way, shape, or form it delivers its goods and services. And they're not charities. And if they want to be a charity, they can be a charity. So, for example, this business here, which I was supposed to launch, like this one, I was supposed to launch this on Tuesday, which I can't now because of COVID. I'm going to run this one like a social enterprise. So it means that the money that it earns, I can put back into things that I'm really passionate about. But my other business is a business. So it's being run in a way to get outcomes for its clients, and that's what it exists for. And I just think for people who haven't been in business, or maybe they sit with a little bit of rose-tinted glasses, that sometimes that realist view of that your business is there to make money, and if it's not making money, you really need to do things to pull up its bootstraps, because you need to be thinking about the business from the health of a business. When you're a director, you've got obligations. So you have to be thinking about it in that regard. And I just sometimes wonder if we get into a more idealistic world when we actually need to be in realism too with business.
Practical shit, yep.
That's probably my biggest concern. I don't really know how it's going to play out. No one really knows how this is going to shake down. So to try say anything else, it's like crystal ball gazing.
My fear is not that you've asked me a question, but I'd like to answer my own question.
Oh,
so
what would you?
Well, it's great you asked there, Holly. So I've been thinking
you
about
do
this.
know me, right? You do know that the conversations are generally one way.
No, it's good. I don't care. It's great. No, what I've been thinking about is I don't want it to be a rush to business as it was, and to business as usual, where business as usual is no longer usual when the infrastructure itself is now on the cloud. It's now tech. It's now software. It's now comms. It's now digital. It's now remote. It's now virtual. That's not business as usual with how it was done. It's different. It's changed. It's not that anymore. So I don't want, because that's actually going to be more lethal trying to have an old business on new train tracks than running the new business on the new train tracks with a new vehicle for business. So what my biggest actually fear is the leadership in business doesn't take the moment to really crystallize and embrace the opportunity of building something new that is better, not trying to force the old world now onto the new. And I think because technically it's not possible, culturally it won't fly, and commercially it probably isn't as smart, right?
But can you blame
That's my
people?
fear.
Can you blame
No, I
them for
can't. No,
having fear?
no.
No, but for having fear, because the inability to act in
Oh
situations
yeah.
like this is generally created by fear. And I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be quick to judge a person who's built a business over 20 years and then suddenly they're confronted with all of these change, and the thing that there is actually holding them back is fear, because that's a very, very real emotion. And it's sort of like, how do we actually assist them to improve, rather than saying, change now, you need to fix it, because they've had 20 years in business and now it's just kind of like, you need to.
Unfortunately, the market doesn't give a shit about their feelings, right? So it's literally adapt or die.
Yeah, but see, you say that, and then the whole thing that has pushed this whole sentiment behind this lockdown and alert levels is this term, be kind. The same way that I could say that kindness does not pay
Yep.
the rent, which was my exact argument for businesses that are still sitting there, not being able to operate, and they don't have a very big voice. So, you say the market doesn't give a shit about feelings. Cool.
Nope.
Then if it didn't insofar as that, well, we really wouldn't give a shit about kindness either.
No, that's
But we know that's
leading with
not
kindness.
true.
I think we're talking about two different things. I think what I'm saying is you need to lead with love and kindness, but the market doesn't care about someone's product or service with how it was done if that's not what they're expecting, right? And I think your point is right though, with the fear that the owners have because they've been there for 20 years or whatever. That actually it is I talk about for innovation to happen. Innovation is it's bravery in action, where they feel brave enough to try and then go and do. So it's a bravery conversation of the individuals, which then go and do things externally to try new things and whatever else. So yeah, but the point to it, I think it is actually interesting, is the question you'd ask is, how do you instill bravery and confidence into the psyche of business owners? That's the one. That's the one. Right?
Absolutely. And it's not by having people sitting on the outside saying you have to do this now and then dragging them along to do it. It's about doing exactly what the PM has done in regards to sending her messaging. It's to say, this is the way we're going to do it to support you, and we're going to pull you on this, or like bring you along on this journey rather than drag you into it. Because a lot of people, what I see is they're like, oh, well, they should just hurry up and do it. And I'm kind of like, well, that's not really helpful in the grand scheme of things, because it's like if we all took that approach, then, there's a lot of things that I could say like, oh, well, government should hurry up and do that. Like, governments don't have the unilateral abilities to just go in and like change years and years of legislation. They have to actually go through a process. So I think that what you've just said is, encouraging these people to go into that brave conversation and to then be comfortable rather than just saying, you need to do it and do it now.
What are you most excited for this next phase as we go into level 2 and beyond?
This.
Okay, give a plug. What is it? How much are they? $59.95, including GST.
No, it's not. It's not the hoodie. It's the business.
Okay.
So no, it's my second business, and I've been working on it for 10 months. And I was supposed to launch it in Parliament on the 28th of April. But obviously that hasn't happened because of old Mati Corona, COVID-19. So it is indefinitely postponed. So at some point in the future it will happen. But it is New Zealand's first government relations, education and training organisation. So in a nutshell, it's creating more people that can do what I do. That's it.
Strong. If people want to check you out and connect up with, if they have political questions, if they want to get the gnarly web world of that is Holly Bennett, where can they go? What can they do?
So my personal LinkedIn is the best place to go if you want to touch base with me one-on-one. So that's just Holly Bennett. And in terms of Pakahi, so Engage is on Instagram, which is such an experience. I didn't like sort of, well, I guess I did grow up in the Instagram era, but I didn't really use Instagram. So I'm trying to learn it right now, and it's the most hilarious thing. I feel like I'm like 50 and I don't know how to do it. So if anyone wants to help me, you're more than welcome. So Engage is on Instagram. That's the best place for that. And then HSB is that's my lobbying company. So that is just www.hsbgovernmentrelations.nz. That's where to find me.
Boom.
Yeah.
Always love our banter. Always love the chat. Always love your insights, and it's good in a world that's something which I know very little about. I get not only excited and enthused, but I learn more, and you bright up the political landscape, because a lot of I see is super boring and just like ugh, and then you come along and it's like, oh, mean, oh, there's that what the tax stuff does. Okay, cool. Oh, okay. Oh, so Deborah's not a minister. Okay, so the fine. Ah, oh, got it. Click, click.
Yes,
Thank you.
You got that as a takeaway. I'm very proud.
Duly noted. Duly noted.
The question I have is I wonder what the comments will pop off for this. Because it wasn't like a very tame, hey, woe is me, let's all hold hands discussion, which I'm not known for anyway. So that's all right. But
I think if you can't have a brave conversation and get brave comments, and stuff it. What are you doing? If it's copy paste blah, it's not moving the needle. And even if it's totally wrong, at least it opens up the conversation to see both sides of something which you may not have thought before, right? So I think that is important. And if those things don't happen, then you do not have a democracy.
Yes.
Is that the right word? Did I use it? Was that the right word? Democracy. Okay.
Perfect.
Democracy.
And now the fact that you talked about it, now I know that you didn't know. You should have just said democracy and then
democracy. So I'm messing with it. I'm democratic. This is democracy, and I appreciate the time. Love your work, Holly.
Love it. Thank you.
Be good. See you soon.
Ka kite.
She's never good. She's flipping trouble. Holly Bennett, absolute weapon. Good human. Great times. Political landscape. Politics. Something I've been asked a lot about if I potentially would get into. The answer is hell no to the no, no, no. Not a chance in hell. I would be a nightmare. I would get fired week 1. I'd tell someone to get stuffed, and it would not go well. So I'm happy to have these brave conversations on the outside, and you know, I'll be honest, I have friends on all sides of the aisles, and I'm intrigued seeing different sides of all of it, whether it be commerce or community or whatever else pops in the mix. So good session, good vibes. Thank you, Holly Bennett, for the time, and I'll see you all soon. Peace.